Darkness reigned in the streets of the city on that cold October night. The silence was only interrupted by the trotting of horses pulling carts along the cobbled alleys. The fog swirled, forming disturbing figures that seemed to watch any lagging passerby. In the basement of an old tavern, barely illuminated by the dim light of a few candles, a group of men eagerly awaited the start of the show. Suddenly, the candles went out and everything was plunged into intense darkness. The creaking of a door was heard and heavy steps coming down the stairs. A crude spotlight lit up the small improvised stage. A murmur of excitement ran through those present. The magician appeared, clad in a long black cape and a top hat. His face was half hidden in the shadows, but his eyes shone sinisterly. With a bow, he greeted those present. After this greeting, he snapped his fingers, and out of nowhere a young chained and gagged girl appeared. The girl desperately tried to break free, with eyes bulging in panic. The magician surrounded the young woman while reciting unintelligible words. Suddenly, there was a bang and a cloud of smoke enveloped the scene. When it dissipated, the girl had disappeared. Those present applauded enthusiastically, unaware of the horrible fate that awaited the hapless girl. That same night, in a hidden room, the magician impassively watched his henchmen dismember the still-living young woman, giving her potions so she wouldn't lose consciousness. Her cries of pain were muffled by gags. The magician coldly oversaw the scene, aware that the girl's organs would fetch them a good sum. Determined to continue with the macabre spectacle as the audience demanded more. The next morning, someone found a severed arm in an alley. The news spread like wildfire, unleashing panic. Nobody knew what was happening to the missing, but the most macabre rumors filled the streets. That night, the tavern basement filled up again with an audience eager for strong emotions. The magician reappeared from the darkness. This time, he gestured and his henchmen brought in a chained man. They tied him to a table and cut his clothes off, leaving his torso exposed. The magician brandished a ritual knife and began cutting the man's flesh, amid screams of pain and the spectators' delight. The magician continued his task, aware that the man's flesh and organs would feed them for days. Applause rewarded his gruesome spectacle. He continued like this for weeks, disappearing women, men, and children to torture them and traffic their remains. The city lived in terror. But one day a young woman managed to escape the magician's clutches and alerted the police. When they raided the tavern, there was no trace left, but in a tunnel under the basement they found a macabre chamber full of torture instruments and human remains. The magician and his henchmen were never seen again, but according to legend, they still roam the streets at night looking for new victims.